The Yankees are in Boston tonight to renew the greatest rivalry in sports. The Bombers are one game back of Tampa Bay in the AL East. They sent Phil Hughes to the hill to oppose Boston ace Josh Beckett. Hughes has been dealing of late and is a perfect 3-0 this season. When the Yankees take the field tonight at Fenway Park, Derek Jeter will pass Lou Gehrig for the second most games played as a Yankee. Only the Mickey Mantle, has played more. On the other side of town, the second-place Mets are 6-4 over their last 10, but are coming off a tough 5-4 loss in Cincinnati Wednesday. Like the Yanks, the Mets had an off day Thursday. The Amazons are back home this weekend to open a 3-game series with San Francisco. Giants lefty Jonathan Sanchez will oppose Mike Pelfrey, who appears to be okay after experiencing some discomfort in his pitching shoulder recently. We shift gears to some troubling news courtesy of NFL legend Lawrence Taylor. The Pro Football Hall of Famer and Giants great was charged Thursday with raping a 16-year-old runaway who police said was forced into prostitution by a man who had beaten her up. There goes Taylor in better days. I actually got this suit, Rena, from Lawrence Taylor's closet before he was on Dancing on the Stars.
Can I hear you were supposed to wear it last week?
I was. Yes. The 51-year-old Taylor, who has faced drug and tax evasion charges in the past, paid the girl $300 for sex in a Holiday Inn in Suffern, where he was arrested early Thursday. Taylor's lawyer has denied the allegations. He was released on bail. From one tragic figure to an heroic one, the baseball world mourns the passing of broadcaster Ernie Harwell, who died Tuesday at 92 after a battle with cancer. Thousands of Detroit Tiger fans lined up outside Comerica Park Thursday to give the beloved Harwell the send-off he wanted, paying their respects before an open casket at the ballpark. Fans were still lining up last night into the early morning hours Friday. Hall of Fame pitcher Robin Roberts also died this week. Roberts, who led the Philadelphia Phillies to the 1950 National League pennant as part of the famed Whiz Kids, died yesterday at his home in Florida of natural causes. He was 83. That's your abbreviated sports roundup. We'll have more next week on the NBA and NHL playoffs because this week we have a very special guest in the Sports Corner. Good stuff. In the famous words of Phil Rizzuto, the scooter, holy cow, Triumph Books has done it again. The leader in Yankees publishing has produced Scooter, a biography of Phil Rizzuto. Today, I have Carlo DeVito in the studio. Thank you so much for being here. And many baseball fans know Rizzuto as a diminutive player who overcame size to become a 5-time All-Star and the 1950 American League Most Valuable Player. But DeVito reveals so much about the man in his book, so much more. The first fully researched and deeply revealing biography of an American legend. Now, Carlo, I brought in today, I don't bring a lot of things in from my collection of stuff, but this is an autograph from Phil Rizzuto. And I got to thinking this week, I got a chance to meet Ernie Harwell during the All-Star game in Detroit in 2005. And people might not know this, but the press box in Detroit is named after Ernie Harwell. And I only had a chance to speak to him very briefly, but just such an iconic figure and that aura and that persona of Ernie Harwell. And the same could be said about Phil Rizzuto. I remember standing online way before I was a reporter, probably for about 5 hours to get this thing signed. And you know, can you put into perspective, why is he such a beloved figure?
Well, there are very few people who have lasted with the organization as long as Phil Rizzuto. And indeed, one of the things that I realized in doing this was that there were two Phil Rizzutos, and one of the ones I knew was the one growing up. That was the voice of every summer. I was a bleacher creature for about 7 years here in the Bronx. I grew up listening to him, but he was a very ferocious player when he was younger, and people don't realize that. People my age weren't there to see that. So I went through 7,500 interviews, newspaper articles, magazine articles. I called people, went through some privately printed papers and things like that so that I could really get to who was Phil Rizzuto. And he's a man who absolutely deserves to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame as a player, but he also deserves to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame as a broadcaster. Mel Allen, certainly thought of as the voice of the Yankees. Red Barber also was in the broadcast booth for the Yankees. But Phil Rizzuto was in the broadcast booth way longer than Mel Allen, and certainly is the voice that you have to think even in 2050 there will still be people alive who remember Phil Rizzuto as the Yankees announcer. So he's a legend.
Carlo, you mentioned it in this book, over 7,000 sources, 2,000 interviews. You're no stranger to the Bronx, being a Fordham University grad, and of course you have a great book also that people should check out on Yogi Berra.
Correct.
Critically acclaimed. And with this book, again, you mentioned Phil Rizzuto, now known to so many of people in my generation, not for his playing days, but before, for his broadcast talents. Right. You mentioned Mel Allen, known as the voice of the Yankees, Bob Shepard, known as the voice of the Yankees. Right. But honestly, Phil Rizzuto is the voice of the Yankees.
Phil Rizzuto is definitely the voice of the Yankees, and of course he's also the voice for a number of other things. He's the voice of the Money Store. You have to remember when the Money Store opened, they had $18,000 in their bank account to lend to other people, and it was on the back of Phil Rizzuto that they grew that to a multi-billion-dollar company, which was eventually bought by one of the major banks in the United States. The other thing is, you have to remember too that he also won a lot of fame being on the Meatloaf song, which was a huge hit, much bigger platinum record, much bigger than he ever anticipated. But he was a voice that was around for generations.
Your book appeals to so many people as well because it truly is an American legend story, an underdog story. So this is a story not just about baseball, but really about a great man who was a veteran of the war, a baseball legend, a broadcaster. And you tell the story of his parents growing up in Brooklyn.
Right. They grew up under the Brooklyn Bridge. He grew up in Queens and in Brooklyn, and he was a New York guy. He tried out with the Giants. He tried out with the Dodgers. Casey Stengel said, "No, go get your shoe shine box. You're never going to play Major League Baseball." And even when he got to the Yankees, they crowded him out of the batting cage. It wasn't until the 4th or 5th day that Joe DiMaggio said, "You know what? Let the little guy hit. If he can't hit, he won't stay here, but we need him. Let him hit." And he had to fight his way all the way through. Nobody gave him anything. Even when he got into the broadcast booth, Mel Allen and Red Barber didn't want him there. They would criticize him openly on the air. All you had to do was tell Phil Rizzuto, "No, you can't do it," and he would try to prove you wrong. He was a blood and guts guy all the way.
Final question too, Carlo. You end up correcting some of the misconceptions about Rizzuto in the book. So many great details, almost like you're part of the Rizzuto family. I think one of the great stories was his high school coach,
coach Al Kunitz, who helped discover a number of other famous ball players. And he took Rizzuto aside and he said, "Look, you're fast, you're aggressive on the bases. What you need to do is get on base." And he taught Phil Rizzuto how to bunt. And Phil Rizzuto became one of the greatest defensive players of all time and the greatest bunter in the history of the game. Got robbed in 49, should have been the MVP in 49, should have won 2 MVPs, five-time All-Star. He was a tremendous player. So many writers from that day will take you back and say he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Well, Carlo, Mother's Day is Sunday. I brought 2 copies of the book. I wanted you to sign one for my mom. She grew up in the shadows of Yankee Stadium. Folks, you got to go out and get this book. It's available in all major retailers, Absolutely. Amazon, Borders, Barnes & Noble. Check out TriumphBooks.com. Carlo, thank you so much for coming to the show. Great book. Check it out. Go get it. Mother's Day's coming up.